My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 41 years old. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and until recently, I thought I understood the shape of my life. Not perfectly, no one really does, but I thought the framework was solid. Married 12 years, one child, one mortgage, one steady job, and logistics that pays the bills. I'm not flashy. I'm not adventurous. But I'm reliable. Steady. Or, at least, that's what I told myself. I met Grace in 2009. She was a part-time photographer finishing her degree in digital design, and I was working overnight shipments for a freight company. She came in to shoot a promotional campaign for our distribution partner, and I carried a box wrong and sliced my palm open. She offered me her scarf to stop the bleeding. I still have it. We dated a year, married the next. Our daughter Emma was born 3 years later, in a flurry of pink blankets and sleepless nights, and the kind of love that wraps itself around your throat without warning. We built a quiet life, until the silence turned from peaceful to strange. It started small, as it always does. Grace got distant. Not in the way you'd expect, not cold or harsh. Just removed. Her phone was always face down. She stayed up later than me, claiming she needed time to wind down. She started working freelance again after years of being a stay-at-home mom, mostly family portraits and local events, and that meant hours away on weekends. I didn't want to be suspicious. I didn't want to be that guy. But something gnawed at me. One night, a Tuesday, I came home early from work. Grace wasn't expecting me. She was in the living room, laptop open, headphones on. I saw her quickly switch windows when she noticed me. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, asked how my day was. Normal things. But the way she shut that laptop, it wasn't just casual. It was deliberate. That night, I waited until she fell asleep. I shouldn't have, but I did. I opened her laptop. I know her password. Our daughter's birthday. Reversed. Easy. I didn't find anything alarming at first. A few open tabs for editing software. Her work calendar. Nothing odd, until I saw the folder. Tucked between vacation photos and invoices, ref_underscore lights. It looked like a reference folder for lighting setups. Perfectly normal for a photographer. But it wasn't. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. All taken in the last 6 months. But not of clients. Not of weddings or babies or family portraits. They were of one man. Same guy, different locations. Candid shots. Coffee shops. Outside a gym. Inside what looked like a hotel lobby. Some looked like surveillance shots. I clicked on one. Then another. Then another. My breath caught. Because in one of the frames, a reflection in the glass behind him, I saw her. Grace. She wasn't hiding. She was right there, camera in hand. It wasn't work. This was personal. I closed the laptop. I didn't sleep. My chest felt tight, like someone was slowly winding a rope around it. The next day, I acted normal. She made Emma's lunch, kissed me goodbye, told me she'd be at the Durham Botanical Gardens for a shoot. She even sent me a photo midday of a mother and 2 boys posing on a bridge. I looked closer. It was an old shot. I remembered her editing it 2 months ago. She lied. I didn't confront her. Not then. I needed more. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, to destroy something over a misunderstanding. Maybe she was being paid for something private. Maybe it was part of a project. But deep down, I already knew. I started watching. Quietly. 2 days later, I told her I had a late meeting. I didn't. I parked 2 blocks from the address she'd given for a maternity shoot. She wasn't there. She was across town. At a hotel. With him. I sat in my car. Watched her walk out the side entrance. She wasn't holding a camera. She wasn't dressed like someone working. She was laughing. He was behind her. Tall. Thin. Maybe early 40s. Athletic. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. He touched the small of her back like he owned it. I felt something inside me shift. Not rage. Not yet. Just a cold understanding. This wasn't an affair in progress. It had roots. Deep ones. That night, I asked her about her day. She said the shoot went well. That the baby wouldn't stop crying. She smiled when she said it, like she was proud of managing it. I wanted to scream. But instead, I asked her a simple question. Do you believe secrets are worse than lies? She blinked. What? I repeated it. Calm. Straightforward. She laughed nervously. Is this one of your hypothetical work things? I smiled. Something like that. She didn't answer the question, just changed the subject. Asked if I could help Emma with her math homework. I nodded, and I did, because I wasn't ready yet. But I was getting there. I wish I could tell you I handled it better, that I confronted her with dignity and precision, that I walked into our kitchen, showed her the photos, and demanded the truth, that I spoke like a man in control of his life. But I didn't. I froze. For days. Because that's what happens when the person you trust most lies with a straight face. Your world doesn't collapse all at once. It erodes. Slowly. Quietly. Like the shoreline being eaten away in the dark. The more I watched, the more the truth revealed itself in fragments. A charged smile when her phone buzzed. Her sudden interest in evening jogs, though she came home without a drop of sweat. Her new perfume, soft and citrusy, completely unlike the lavender she'd worn for years. These weren't coincidences. These were clues. But the real unraveling came from an unexpected place. Emma. One evening, while Grace was working late, Emma came into my office in her pajamas, holding her tablet. "Daddy," she whispered, "I think Mommy has a new friend." I turned to her, heart pounding. "What makes you say that, sweetheart?" She hesitated, then showed me the screen. A photo. One Grace had forgotten to delete from a shared cloud folder. She must have thought she turned syncing off. It was a selfie. Her and the man. His arm was around her. They were in a park somewhere. She was smiling, the kind of smile I hadn't seen in years. She said he helped her with her camera, Emma said quietly. But they hug a lot. My blood turned to ice. Did she say his name? I asked. She nodded. Mark. It hit me like a sucker punch. Mark Whitaker. Grace's old flame. The guy she dated before me. The one who moved out to the West Coast after college and vanished into a high-paying tech job. She'd mentioned him exactly 3 times in the past decade. Always like he was ancient history. Apparently, ancient history had a good memory. I thanked Emma, kissed her forehead, and told her not to worry. Then I waited and waited. When Grace finally walked in the door, it was nearly 11 p.m. She looked surprised to see me awake. "Everything okay?" she asked, setting her bag down. I didn't answer right away. I just watched her, studied the way she moved, how she avoided my eyes. "Do you still talk to Mark Whitaker?" I asked. She blinked, like the name startled her. "No," she said too quickly. "Why? You sure?" She paused, then tried to recover. "Well, I mean, not really. We reconnected a while ago, professionally. He does design now, and I needed help with a client portfolio. But nothing serious." "Nothing serious," I repeated. "Dan," she said gently, walking toward me, "it's not what you think. I haven't told you what I think." She flinched, just a little. "I just needed someone to talk to," she whispered. "Things have been hard between us." "There are counselors for that," I said flatly. "Not exes." Her lips trembled. She reached for me, but I stepped back. "How long?" She didn't answer. "How long, Grace?" Her voice was barely audible. "A few months." My hands curled into fists at my sides. "And Emma?" I asked, forcing calm. "Did you think about what kind of damage this would do to her?" "She doesn't know anything." "She knows enough," I snapped. "She showed me the picture you forgot to delete." Grace sank into a chair, buried her face in her hands. I didn't mean for it to go this far, but it had, and we both knew it. The next morning, she was gone before sunrise. No note, no apology, just an empty bed and silence. I sat at the kitchen table, trying to figure out what to do. My instinct said divorce, but something held me back. Not out of love, not even out of fear, out of confusion, because betrayal was one thing. But hiding it so cleanly, for months, while playing house with me and raising our daughter, that took calculation, discipline, and there was something deeper here. I could feel it. So I made a call to someone I never thought I'd involve. My older brother, Evan. We weren't close, not since Dad's funeral, but he was a former cop, now a private investigator. If anyone could find out what Grace was really doing, it was him. I gave him everything I knew. The photos, the hotel, Mark's name. Evan sighed. "You sure you want to know what's behind the curtain, Danny?" "No," I admitted, "but I need to." He agreed to look into it, discreetly. What he found, 1 week later, cracked everything wide open. Mark wasn't just some old boyfriend. He wasn't just someone she reconnected with by accident. He lived in Charlotte, 2 hours away. But he hadn't been commuting in for romantic weekends. He'd recently started a company, a design firm, and guess who was listed on the founding paperwork? Under a different last name? Grace. Grace and Walker. Her maiden name. She'd been building a second life. Under my nose. And I wasn't part of it. Not just emotionally, financially. Bank statements Evan pulled showed transfers. Subtle ones. Small amounts at first, then larger. She had a separate account. Credit cards in her maiden name. A P.O. box in Charlotte. This wasn't a fling. It was an escape plan, one that I was never meant to see. I stared at the documents, at the clean, sharp signature at the bottom of the LLC registration. Grace and Walker. Not Mercer. Not my wife. Something inside me broke and reset. She didn't just cheat on me. She replaced me, while sleeping in my bed, while hugging our daughter goodnight, while asking me to pick up eggs and milk and acting like we still shared something. This wasn't just infidelity. It was erasure. I didn't tell her I knew. Not yet. I went quiet, cold, mechanical, because this wasn't a confrontation anymore. This was a strategy. I wanted to know everything. Every lie, every account, every thread she tried to tuck away. And when I had it all, I'd decide what version of me she'd be answering to. A week passed. Grace acted like nothing had changed. She still kissed Emma goodnight, asked me if I wanted coffee in the morning, and occasionally tried to close the distance between us with small talk and soft gestures. But there was a tremor beneath it all, the subtle anxiety of someone who knows the wall is cracking, but doesn't yet know where the leak will break through. She had no idea I'd been quietly tracing every dollar she moved, every address she visited, every name she used when she thought no one was watching. And then, the mistake happened. Not mine. Hers. It was a Thursday night, just after 10 p.m. Grace was asleep or pretending to be. I was in the office, reviewing some bank data Evan had pulled from forensic accountant he knew. It showed more than just secret transfers. It showed patterns. Recurring payments to something labeled S and H Holdings. Sounded like a property firm. So I dug deeper. A few calls. Some legal lookups. A fake inquiry through a burner email Evan helped me create. And there it was, a residential lease. Charlotte, North Carolina. Not a company headquarters. A condo. Rented under the name Grace A. Walker with a secondary tenant listed, Mark Whitaker. They weren't just working together. They were living together. While I was packing Emma's lunch and paying the mortgage, she was building a parallel life 2 hours away and still sleeping in my house every other week. It wasn't even rage anymore. It was clarity. I printed the lease. I sat with it for a long time. And then I made my own plan. The next day, I told Grace I was taking Emma for the weekend, a father-daughter trip, just the two of us. She smiled and nodded, clearly relieved. Maybe she thought I needed the space. Maybe she thought I'd start to fade, that I'd fall into some silent acceptance and let her disappear without a fight. We drove to my sister Lauren's house in Asheville. I told her everything. Lauren's always been sharper than me. Lawyer, brutally honest, emotionally bulletproof. She didn't cry. She didn't get sentimental. She got strategic. You want this to end with her exposed or just gone? She asked, sipping her coffee. Both, I said. Then you need one more piece of leverage. She was right. I needed the final truth. Not a suspicion. Not a guess. A fact she couldn't wiggle out of. So I hired a third party, someone Lauren recommended. A retired PI named Marla, quiet and effective. No flashy tactics. Just results. I gave her the address of a Charlotte condo. She called me 5 days later. You want to see this in person, she said. I drove down that evening, parked across from the building. Marla was already there, seated in an old Corolla with tinted windows. She handed me a folder. Inside, a series of photographs. Crystal clear. One showed Grace walking out of the condo building. Another showed her and Mark loading boxes into the back of a rental SUV. But the third one nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. It was Grace, sitting across from an older woman in a cafe, holding hands, smiling warmly. Nothing romantic, but deeply familiar. What is this? I asked, eyes locked on the woman. Marla pulled out another document. A birth certificate, but not Emma's. A boy's. Liam Walker. Age 8. Mother. Grace and Walker. Father. Unknown. Who is this? I asked again, but I already knew. Marla nodded. Grace has a second child. Not with you. He lives in Charlotte. She drops by twice a week. I sat there in stunned silence. A second child. Not mine. Not ours. Born 4 years after we were married. That's when everything snapped into place. The random weekends she needed space. The silent retreats. The late-night drives. The period 5 years ago when she suddenly got too overwhelmed and had to stay with her mother for a few weeks. She had another family, and not just an affair, a child, a home, a full second identity. This wasn't betrayal. This was duplicity in its purest form. And the worst part? She still came home to Emma, still played wife to me, like she was two people. That night, I stared at myself in the mirror of a cheap hotel just off I-85. My reflection looked different, not because my face had changed, but because something inside me had. The man who built a family with Grace was gone, and the man replacing him had one goal left. Finish this cleanly, completely, and in a way she could never rewrite. Back home, I pretended nothing had changed. Grace asked how the trip was. I said great. She made dinner that night. Pasta, like she used to when we were first married. She hummed in the kitchen, played our old playlist from a dusty Bluetooth speaker. She even poured 2 glasses of wine. I watched her closely, not with hatred, with precision. You look like you're miles away, she said softly. I'm just thinking, I replied. She smiled like it was a good thing. And I let her, because the next day, the pieces would all fall. I went to a lawyer, brought every document, every photo, every bank statement, every folder, even Emma's testimony about Mommy's new friend. He looked at me like I'd handed him the script for a crime novel. She'll lose everything, he said slowly. Are you ready for that? She already lost me, I said. The rest is hers to watch fall. We filed the first motion quietly. A full separation. Emergency custody. The works. But I didn't want to serve her papers the usual way. No, she needed to feel the moment land. So I waited for our anniversary. June 5th. She planned a dinner, sushi, candles, the works. I dressed nice. Showed up on time. She handed me a small box. A new watch, engraved with Forever Grace. I opened it, smiled. Then I handed her my envelope. Her eyes narrowed. What's this? She opened it. Inside, the lease. The photos. The bank transfers. And the birth certificate. She didn't speak. Her mouth opened. Closed. Then opened again. How long have you? A while. She shook her head slowly. You don't understand. I do, I cut in. You just thought I wouldn't. Tears welled in her eyes. Damn, please. You thought you could rewrite history, I said, standing. That you could control the timeline. But you don't own this story anymore. She reached out for my hand. I stepped back. Check your email, I said. The divorce petition is waiting. The night I handed her that envelope, I didn't sleep. Not because I was second-guessing it, I wasn't. But because I knew the fallout wouldn't be quiet. And I was right. The very next morning, Grace called me 27 times before 9 a.m. Text flooded in. Please, can we talk privately? This can't be how it ends. You don't understand why I did it. Think about Emma. She kept circling back to that last one. Emma. The irony nearly made me laugh. She used Emma as a shield. But never once had she considered what kind of damage would be done when her double life came to light. What it would mean for a little girl who still thought the world spun around her parents' love. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I picked Emma up from school early. I took her out for lunch, just the two of us. I asked her simple questions, let her talk about her day, her friends, her art class. I watched her, studied the way she smiled, and it crushed me, because I knew her world was about to split open. But at least now it would be on my terms. By that weekend, Grace's facade had started to crack publicly. She moved into her sister's guest room. Mark, apparently caught off guard by the exposure, backed out of their design business. Lawyers filed to dissolve the LLC. And Liam? That was the part that kept me up at night. Not because he was my responsibility. He wasn't. But because he was Grace's. And if there was one person who didn't choose this mess, it was him. Monday came with sharp teeth. Grace filed a response to my divorce petition. She wanted joint custody of Emma. The audacity of it nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. We entered mediation. And it was everything you'd imagine. Cold chairs, polite venom, lawyers scribbling notes, while our once shared life got chopped into categories. Assets, custody, visitation, property. She showed up in a blazer and soft curls. The version of herself that charmed people. She played the role well. "I want to keep things peaceful for Emma's sake," she said to the mediator, voice trembling with just enough emotion to sound authentic. But I wasn't there for theater. I brought receipts, evidence of her second residence, her financial manipulation, photos of her and marked together. Time-stamped during weekends, she claimed she was burnt out or with her mother. Even messages she sent to a friend about wishing Dan would just take the hint and fall apart. The mediator's expression slowly shifted from neutral to grim. Grace's lawyer requested a break. She stepped out. I didn't follow, because for the first time, she had to sit with the silence, the real kind. No excuses, no distractions, just the wreckage she caused. Later that week, I got a message from someone unexpected. "Mark." It was short, just a single line. "I had no idea she was still living with you. I'm sorry." I stared at it for a while. Not because I believed him, but because I didn't care anymore. He wasn't my problem. She was. That Friday, Emma asked why Mommy didn't come to pick her up like she promised. I knelt down, took her tiny hands in mine. "She's going through something right now," I said carefully. "Something that isn't your fault. But it means Daddy's going to take care of you for a little while, okay?" She nodded slowly, then asked a question that split me open. Did I do something wrong? I held her so tightly I could feel her heartbeat press into mine. "No, baby, you didn't. You're the only thing in this story that's right." Over the next month, things moved fast. Grace lost control of the narrative. Her sister stopped speaking to her, apparently furious at being lied to about Liam's father and the business. Her mother, who once adored me, called me in tears. She didn't defend her daughter. She asked what I needed for Emma. It was surreal, watching a woman who once micromanaged every corner of our lives suddenly be unable to hold anything together. But still, a part of me felt something that surprised me. Not satisfaction, not pity, just emptiness. Then one night, Grace asked to meet. No lawyers, no mediation room, just us, in a neutral space. I said yes. We met at a park halfway between our old house and her sister's place. Emma was at a sleepover. She sat on the bench, waiting, wearing a hoodie, no makeup, hair pulled back. For once, she looked like herself. Just Grace. Not Grace the wife, or Grace the photographer, or Grace the double-life architect. Just Grace. He sat beside her. Not close. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she began. "But I need you to know why." I didn't speak, because I wasn't there for explanations. She sighed. "I felt trapped. Not because of you. Because of me. I never figured out who I was supposed to be. I kept trying on lives like clothes, hoping one would fit. And you thought you'd find it while married?" I asked. She flinched. "No, I just never really believed I deserved what we had. So I sabotaged it." "That's not a reason," I said. "That's a confession." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt Emma. Or you. But you did." Silence settled between us. She finally whispered, "I miss the man who used to hold my hand while we fell asleep." "That man," I said slowly, "doesn't exist anymore." She nodded, wiped her cheek. "I know." And that was it. She stood, walked away. No dramatico, no sadempli, just quiet. But not peace. Not yet. The days after that meeting were quieter than I expected. Grace didn't message me, didn't call, didn't send long paragraphs trying to rationalize the past. And for the first time in months, I didn't check my phone constantly. Not because I didn't care, because I no longer needed anything from her. What we had wasn't salvageable. What we had wasn't even honest. But something strange happens when the chaos slows down. The pain becomes clearer, not sharper, just more visible, like bruises rising to the surface after a deep hit. And I started to feel it in the mornings when Emma didn't ask for her mom, in the small, empty spaces Grace used to fill with laughter or sarcasm or Sunday pancakes. I didn't miss her, but I did miss who I thought she was. That version of her, the one I built in my mind and married in good faith, that version was dead, and I had to mourn it. Alone. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday, 3 months after I filed. It felt like a trial and a funeral in one. Grace arrived looking polished, composed, but smaller somehow. Not physically, spiritually. She didn't sit next to her lawyer when she came in. She sat alone for a long while, just staring down at her hands, like she was bracing for something only she could see. I had my team. Evan was there, not as a PI anymore, just as my brother. Quiet support. Lauren, too. She sat with Emma in the hallway, ready to keep her out of the courtroom if things got ugly. They didn't. Grace didn't fight. When the judge asked if she wanted to contest full custody, she hesitated, then shook her head. No, Your Honor. He's better for her. She looked at me then, tears filling her eyes but not falling. He always was. Afterward, in the hallway, she stopped me. I'm going to step back, she said softly. Not forever, but for now. Emma needs consistency. And I need. She trailed off. What? I asked. She swallowed hard. To learn how to live with myself. I nodded. That was the most honest thing she'd said in over a year. We shook hands. It was the strangest gesture we could have made. Formal, distant, respectful. Like two business partners dissolving a failed company. But maybe that's all we were by the end. Not lovers. Not enemies. Just two people who couldn't outrun the truth. The months that followed weren't easy. Emma asked fewer questions, but when she did, they were sharper. Why doesn't Mommy call anymore? Is Liam my brother? Did you stop loving her? Each one cut. Each one reminded me how delicate the line between honesty and protection really is. I answered what I could, and left the rest for time to reveal gently. In between all of that, I rebuilt. I fixed the door Grace always said was just sticky. I painted Emma's room. Bright blue. Her favorite. I canceled the streaming accounts we never used. Picked up cooking again. Ran 3 miles every morning. I wasn't reinventing myself. I was rediscovering the man who'd gotten lost trying to hold up a marriage full of shadows. Then one day, something happened that made me stop cold. I got a letter. Not an email. A letter. Handwritten. No return address. Inside, 1 page. No greeting. No closer. Just 6 words. He knows. And he forgives you. It didn't say who it was from. But I knew. Mark. Somehow, he'd found out the full story. About Liam. About the timeline. About the way Grace used him, and me, as building blocks for lives she couldn't commit to. He could have lashed out. Could have thrown her under the bus. But he didn't. And that, more than anything, reminded me why I had to let go of the bitterness. Because if the other man could find peace, then so could I. Grace eventually moved back to Charlotte. Not with Mark, he was long gone. Alone, for the first time in what was probably a decade. I heard through a mutual friend that she took a part-time teaching job at a community college, started therapy, cut ties with anyone who only knew her as part of a couple. She was trying. And while I didn't forgive her in the traditional sense, I respected that she didn't try to spin the ending. She owned it, even if too late. Then came the moment that reshaped everything. 6 months post-divorce. Emma's school had a family day. Parents invited to visit the classroom, participate in group activities, watch a performance. Grace asked if she could come. I told her yes. She showed up quietly. No big entrance. No spotlight on herself. And when Emma saw her, she lit up like it was Christmas. They hugged, held hands, laughed. And in that moment, I saw something unexpected. Not betrayal. Not anger. Just humanity. A woman who'd broken something sacred and now lived every day with the weight of what she lost. Not to win it back, but to be better than the version of herself that caused it. That evening, Grace waited until Emma was distracted with her art supplies. Then she walked over to me. I know I can't undo what I did, she said, but I wanted to thank you. For what? For letting me be her mom again, even if it's from a distance. I nodded slowly. She deserves the truth, and the best version of you. Grace's voice cracked. I'm trying. I can see that. We stood in silence for a moment. She turned to leave. But before she did, she said something I'll never forget. You were everything I claimed to be. Time is strange after the dust settles. You stop waking up in fight or flight mode. You stop replaying conversations and rewriting history in your head. You just start living again. Quietly. Deliberately. It didn't happen all at once for me. But over time, I began to breathe in deeper. I laugh more. Real laughs, not the kind you fake when someone asks how you're holding up. I stopped checking Grace's social media, stopped wondering what she was doing or who she was becoming, because she was no longer a part of my equation, not in the way she used to be. She was Emma's mother, a woman I once loved. A chapter 1 had finished, but my story, that was still being written, and it was finally mine again. One day, Emma came home with an art project, a family tree. She handed it to me proudly. "Look, Daddy, I made us." There we were, me, Emma, Grace, but also a branch that said Liam, half-brother. I paused. She looked up at me, innocent and sure. I asked Mommy. She said I could add him if I wanted. My throat tightened. "You did a great job," I said softly. "I'm proud of you." She smiled, climbed into my lap, and whispered, "Maybe one day I'll get to meet him." It wasn't a question. It wasn't a demand. Just a hope. And somehow, I realized I wasn't afraid of that hope anymore. The real turning point didn't come with a bang. It came on a Sunday afternoon. I was cleaning out the garage, sorting through a bin of old stuff Grace left behind. Most of it went straight into donation piles or trash. But one notebook caught my eye. Black cover. Spiral bound. I almost tossed it, thinking it was from Emma. But when I opened it, I froze. It was Grace's handwriting. A letter. Addressed to me. Never sent. It wasn't dated. But from the contents, I could tell she wrote it sometime after the custody hearing. I read it in silence, leaning against the concrete wall as dusk filtered through the garage window. Done? If you're reading this, it means I never had the courage to hand it to you. And that probably says everything you need to know about the woman I was and the woman I'm trying to become. Elite. Not just about Mark or Liam or the money. I lied about who I was. I built 1,000 versions of myself, trying to escape the feeling that I was never enough. But what I had with you, it was real, even if I didn't know how to live inside it. I watched you hold everything together for so long, and I let myself believe you didn't need support, that you didn't need me. That's the cruelty of self-sabotage. It turns love into a mirror you're too ashamed to look into. You were better than I deserved, and you still are. But I hope, someday, you'll remember the good. Because the truth is, I loved you in the only way I knew how. And I'm sorry it wasn't enough. You made me a mother. You made me feel safe. You were my home. Please tell Emma the truth one day. Not just about what I did, but about who her father was during all of it. Tell her how you showed up, how you stayed soft when it would have been easier to harden. Tell her you never broke. Because that's the version of you I want her to remember. I'm still learning how to be honest. With myself. With the world. But if redemption exists, you already earned it. Gee. I folded the letter, put it back in a notebook, and set it on the shelf. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. But something settled in me, like a door finally closed. Not slammed, just sealed. And behind that door lived a part of my life I'd never erase, but no longer needed to revisit. 6 months later, I met someone. Not someone to replace Grace. Just someone who saw me, fully, and never flinched. Her name's Andrea. She's a therapist, ironically. We met through a mutual friend at a charity run. The first time we spoke, it wasn't about loss or betrayal or healing. It was about books. Of all things. We talked for hours. And when I mentioned I was divorced, she didn't blink. Just nodded and asked, "What did it teach you?" I told her the truth. That pain could be a fire or a forge. And I chose the latter. Grace and I found a rhythm eventually. Co-parenting, birthdays, check-ins. Not friends. Not enemies. Just two people trying to raise a daughter with grace. The kind that doesn't shatter when the past gets heavy. Emma's thriving now. Unraveled. Soccer team. She wants to be an architect. Says she wants to build things people you never want to leave. Sometimes that hits me harder than I let on. But mostly it makes me proud. Because despite the wreckage, we built something good. And even if it wasn't what I imagined, it still mattered. I look back now, and I don't see a broken man. I see a man who got lost, who was lied to, who was betrayed, but who refused to stay there. I see a father who chose his daughter, a husband who let go of someone who didn't choose him, and a human being who didn't use pain as a license to destroy, but as a map to rebuild. That's what redemption is. It's not erasing the past. It's rising above it and carrying the lesson forward. For her, for Emma, and finally, for myself.